Welcome to Rainbow Soul Vodcast, where our Soulstrology comes forward to help you manage your everyday life, with forecasts and deep dives on natal charts and queer perspectives on the planets, transits, and more. A group discussion about upcoming transits with tips on how to read these transits in your own chart. Hollis offers years of wisdom and natal chart knowledge with Bright Hawk's positive perspective and Lacrosse's inquiry. We offer the complete queer astrology experience. Welcome to Rainbow Soul. Please help us by subscribing, sharing, and commenting and reviewing. You can also learn where else Rainbow Soul is offered on our website at rainbowsoul.show.
Welcome to Rainbow Soul Soulstrology Astrology Forecast. This is Hollis, and I'm one of your astrologers here. And, you can find more about me in the description. You can get readings and whatnot from me.
Hollis is an amazing astrologer. I'm just going to say, not that I'm biased or anything, totally biased. And I'm telling the truth. Hi there. I'm Bright Hawk, musician, author, storyteller, author of The Dancing Hippo, and a gender-neutral book that is award-winning and was really fun to sell a lot of them at Pride. I have to say that was really fun connecting with a lot of families at Pride. So you can learn more about me at brighthawkproductions.com. And
I'm Lacrosse Ortiz, Jack of all trades, master of none. I am the creator of the Fool's Journey and the Wands Color Journal. So it's a journal with just keywords you can focus on, meditate on them in color, and then kind of journal what it brings to you. You can find me on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram.
Awesome. Fabulous. What I wanted to also include is somebody asked me to mention this, and one of our listeners. I do synastry readings. Now, what is synastry astrology readings? That's when you take two people and put them together. And it's particularly of interest when I personally think you should do it before you make a commitment to anyone. But that's just my opinion. But a lot of people find it particularly profound when I do a reading for them and a person that has passed on, including your children, including your parent or anyone else. And I do a form of mediumship and astrology mixed together. I am the only person in the world as of that I know of right now that does it. Okay, there might be somebody, but I don't know who they are. So if you know someone else that does death readings, I would love to hear about them. But I would love to have a conversation with them just about all kinds of things. But essentially, I take a look at the person that passed chart, and I just try to help you come to a closure about their death. Like, okay, this was destined, or maybe it wasn't. A lot of times, overdoses and suicides are not really destined. They're more like windows that get opened, and there's a potential for that, but and then the person just kind of jumps through, and sometimes there's nothing there at all that indicates that it was even meant to be, even slightly, and it was just clearly that person's mistake, right? Like that, especially with fentanyl. Oh my God, it's everywhere, and so it's a terrible endeavor. So whatever we can do to rectify that, that would be great. But also, I've done readings for children that were gender variant for their parents, and help them understand why it happened and why did they commit suicide, for instance. And I can sometimes look at the emotional experience at the time of their death. So I just essentially do kind of a synastry type of thing. Synastries are also really good for any time you're partnering with someone or in a relationship with someone, including your children, siblings, business partners, anything. And if you want to know how you influence each other, past lives, future lives together, that's how you do it. So Funny thing how astrology can help you with so many things, especially relationships. Somebody once said to me, "Oh, can astrology do that?" And I'm like, what can astrology not help with? I don't know.
Timing, it's part of life.
Yeah, so, it's all there. So I'm going to suggest that we do a little meditation right here and now. Take this moment to take a deep breath. And I invite you to step under a night sky after you take a few deep breaths. Take a deep breath. Blow out your stress. And get present with your here and now. And as you come present in the here and now, take a moment to imagine yourself outside underneath a night sky, allowing for the stars to take you in, for them to engulf you in what's feeling of a never-ending sky. And right now, just at the peak above the trees, is a really bright star. It's almost like the brightest in the sky, except for the moon. And it shines bright at you, and it just stays steady and shines bright. And as you get closer to this planet, you begin to recognize that this is the beautiful and amazing planet of Venus. And as she spins in front of you, moving and around, she helps you remember your inner beauty, your self-love, your love for others, and your relationship with Mother Nature, and your relationship with stuff, with the things you love. Sometimes when you look at her, she almost feels like a big, huge heart. And as she spins around in front of you, she holds you in compassion and love and reminds you that you are lovable and that you are loving. And I invite you to have a gentle smile at yourself as Venus backs up with her love for the entire world, for her love for everyone, and for her reminder of how important it is for us to love ourselves. Now she backs up into the sky. I invite you As you stare at the stars and the beautiful bright Venus in the sky, put your hand on your heart and become present in your body. Recognize your own heart. The strength of your heart. And as we become present in our bodies, we give thanks for our hearts and for all the work they do all day, every day. And I invite you to feel your feet flat on the floor. Feel your bottom in the chair, and your hands, and your body, and come into your body in the here and now. Open your eyes and welcome to Rainbow Soul Astrology Forecast. Yay, Bright Hawk.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bright Hawk.
Always a pleasure.
I
Thank
appreciate
you for that beautiful meditation on Venus. It was quite active in the sky this week.
Oh my goodness.
And very, very shiny bright in the sky.
Yeah, it is
This time
shiny
of year.
bright in the northern hemisphere, right?
Yeah,
Most of the
very,
northern
very much
hemisphere.
so.
Yeah, so I know for us it's early in the evening. It's over here beyond our trees. I don't know where. Have you ever gone out and looked for it, Lacrosse?
I have, but sadly with the smog, it's kind of hard to find.
Aw, do you ever
mean-
get? Do you ever? Didn't you guys go to the Poconos? Did you get a chance then? Do you get it? Do you ever
No,
take that kind of trip?
No. I mean, I was able to see it before, but like recently, no, I haven't been able to see it because
So-
honestly, I think I'm asleep by the time
Oh my
anything
God.
starts showing up. I'm like,
Yeah,
but yeah.
yeah. It's usually around like 9. It would be right before you go to bed, probably. Yeah, I would highly recommend if you ever get to go. If anyone ever gets to go, some parks, some national parks will even name themselves night sky parks. So there are lots of parks, especially out here in the West, that you can go out and look at the stars much easier than you can in the city. I grew up in the city, so I didn't grow up looking at the stars, so I totally get it, Lacrosse. I didn't really become aware of or able to identify anything in the sky until I was partnered with Bright Hawk. Now, my son did, which was the weirdest thing, because I raised him out on the eastern shore of Maryland, and he would point stuff out to me, and I'd be like, it is, okay. Like, I would just believe the little 8-year-old that just pointed out, Orion's belt or something. But then when I was with Bright Hawk, she would always, look, there's Venus, and there's some pretty cool apps you can have on your phone, too, that will help you identify what you're seeing in the sky.
Oh,
So there's some pretty cool apps for free. And so I highly encourage you to do that, especially if you're doing any kind of work in astrology. So like if you want Saturn, for instance, to come down and help you with something, then you want to try to, get connected with the zodiac that Saturn's in, maybe, or something like that.
Detroit now would be Pisces.
Can you see Pisces in the sky at any time during the night? Not right now. Probably not in the northern hemisphere.
I'm not sure. I'd have to
Yep.
think about it.
So,
But
all
I was
right.
one of those lucky little girls who grew up with my dad setting up the telescope and fixing it on something and then bringing over a stool for me and helping me look up and through the telescope. And then, sometimes it would be something very exciting like Jupiter, and he'd be like, and even in a telescope, Jupiter's tiny, but you could count the moons, the little specks, all
nice.
the moons around, because Jupiter has dozens and dozens of moons, like 32 moons or something like that.
Wow.
So, if you have a decent telescope, you can usually see 4, 5, 6, easily. And so that was fun. I definitely appreciated growing up with an appreciation for the sky, and
Yeah, that's a special thing. And then plus you took a class in college, which probably
I took astrophysics in college, so,
yeah,
that'll force you to learn and memorize a lot of the constellations.
Yeah, I took earth science, so that was my choice.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to all right, so I'm going to share our presentation here. It'd be helpful if I click share screen. Okay, so this is for July 10th through the 16th. And I'll tell you what, I looked at this at first and I was like, oh, is all that stuff still in the sky, the yod, and even the things that we talked about like last week, those things will continue, including with Pluto squaring the nodes, which I personally think is going to be some of the most powerful energy this month in July. I just think it's going to be going on for quite some time. It goes on all week long and was going on last week.
So the nodes are about, as sometimes we call them, dharma and karma. So what's squaring the nodes?
Pluto.
Mars? Pluto. Ooh.
Right.
What does that mean, Hollis? Should I be afraid?
Well, Pluto is a little bit about power and control.
Transformation.
It is about power and control.
Is that what the last is? Is that supposed to be Pluto?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not plot, by the way. It's Pluto at the bottom.
Oh my gosh,
okay.
It's so funny when I do that thing. Okay, so I am like forever having typos. Anyway, Pluto's a lot about power and control, and Pluto is also about death, rebirth, and change and transformation. Pluto tends to also, I think Pluto has a connection to like our action, but it has more of a bigger face to it. So right now it's in retrograde in Capricorn, and it's kind of going back and kind of smacking people upside the face around money. So if I'm kind of laughing right now because there's a lot of people that were like, oh, crypto's going to crash forever. Crypto's going to suck forever. It's never going to do anything ever. There's a whole bunch of people that were saying that. And now they're kind of eating their words because crypto is now skyrocketing. Bitcoin, Japan has adopted it as their main source of like money, right? Like,
Wow.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of countries adopting it as a major way of exchanging in their country, and they're figuring it out. There's people figuring it out. The United States will do something like this eventually too. But that's why the United States is trying to control it. So this is what I'm saying about power, control. Hear what I'm talking about, power, control. And because Pluto is in Capricorn, it's about money. And before it had a little bit earlier this year, it had moved into Aquarius, and now it's moving back. And because of where the nodes have moved, they've moved into Taurus and Libra. So we've shifted from Scorpio and we are still in Taurus and Scorpio, the nodes, but they're at 0 degrees. They're on their way to Libra and Aries. Okay. And they're right on 0 degrees. If you take a look there, they kind of look little horseshoes. There's one up at the top near the moon, and there's one, they're always directly across the sky from each other. Okay. And what they essentially mean is why the reason they say dharma and karma is because the south node is where you came from. The south node is what you brought through from a past life. It is what you still hold on to from your childhood and what you carry through your, carry forward. And then your north node is where you're headed. So, it's pretty much, and that's dharma, right? So karma, dharma, right? Okay, so dharma is what you should be doing. It's your life calling. It's your destiny. So you want to take a look at it, right? Where is your north node? Where is your south node in your chart? Just look for the little horseshoe. Sometimes you'll only see one. Okay, you usually see the north node or the true node. There's not much difference between the two except for like a half a degree sometimes, but most of the time they're about in the same place. So for a beginner, I would say don't worry about it. If it says true node or north node, it's the same, and you can assume that directly across the sky is your south node. Okay, and you can ask them to ask most software to market, including Astro.com, but but Pluto is squaring them. So this is our destiny, right? Our destiny has a lot to do with our money system. Our money system, we have to figure out a new money system. We have to. People don't even use change anymore. People don't even use quarters, dimes, nickels, pennies. I just have them. They're like spiritual meanings these days. They're like, they don't even, but there is meaning to, like, people say there's not a whole lot of meaning to crypto and stuff like that, but I think there actually is, because there are people that are invested in it. There are people that want to keep it secure. There are people that want to see it go forward. So as a result, they're part of the power system. Even as much as we may like or dislike Elon Musk, I'm not sure how I feel about the guy. I've never personally met him, so I don't know. But as far as I can tell, sometimes his shit's kind of screwed up. But at the same time, he's invested in it and he has a lot of power. Okay? And so we have to remember that. And Pluto squaring these nodes in Capricorn right now is saying to the world big things. And yeah, it will affect our personal lives. Like, it may have you reflecting on your work, reflecting on your job, where you're going, and what you did in the past. So it might have you doing that, like you going, I've done that before and I hated it. Okay. Or I loved it. Maybe I'd go back to that old job. Okay. And so, like, you might be, especially when it comes to jobs, money, career, or anything like Capricorn like. So those money and jobs and the work that you do in the world is very Capricorn. Okay. And so that's happening all week. It was happening last week. I mentioned it last week, and it's happening this week. So, but now things have moved. Things are sort of moving across the opposition from Pluto. If you look at that dark red line going across, you'll see that Pluto in opposition has already had Mars go over it and Venus go over it. And now Mercury is moving over it, and Lilith is on her way, and so she'll also move over it this week. And soon the sun will, and soon Juno will. And so all of the planets that move fairly quick, at some point the moon does. But when things are in opposition, it's like a push in two different directions. So with Mercury, that's about what we speak, and communication rules the internet and technology. So that would explain why so much is going on in the crypto world, where people are going, oh, crypto survived. Okay. And so that's part of what's going on. And then Lilith is about independence, which is kind of crypto-like. If you think about crypto, it's about breaking free from a government putting a value on a piece of paper, because if you study money, you start to learn very quickly that there's really no value in a dollar bill. But yet we put value on it. And so crypto wants to remove that power from the government and instead give it to the people. So when you realize that, then you start to go, oh, and that's what Pluto's trying to do. And if you look at Lilith in Cancer and Mercury in Cancer, it's sort of like, we don't know that unless you really look into it. Like, unless you really do your studies. And then you start to realize that. So I think that's kind of your theme. That's kind of like the underlying theme
That
in
persists.
July.
Yeah.
In July.
Yeah.
It's going to be going on for a while.
I had a question about the
Go for it.
nodes. So the North Node is the direction you're supposed to go. That's your destiny. But what if a person also has a Yud? Wouldn't that be their destiny as well?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I was just listening to a lecture by Christopher Renstrom, who's a pretty well-known astrologer. He's actually a gay astrologer. Woohoo for gay astrologers. And he was stating how he has struggled with understanding yads, and that they seem to, yes, be very destined regardless of how you look at it. And in my experience, people that have yads and a North Node, and let's say the yad points in a completely different direction, points in Sag or something, and then your North Node is over there in Aries, okay? It's just that the yad is a very direct thing that will happen, or a direct theme of something that will happen. So for people that I've noticed it's like a theme, like they consistently, let's say the yad is pointing at, let's just say something in Aries, like a leadership type of symbology, then you will consistently be challenged towards leadership through life, but your destiny is actually in a different leadership sign, let's say in Leo instead, okay? And so the yads, the yad is like a direct, like a theme, but it'll probably be related to your North Node if you look at it and you take a good look at both of them. So there's
this
sometimes
week,
2 or 3 things that point to the same destiny.
actually, you're right. It's this month. There's a number of yads that stay active for days and days and days and days and days. And this week is one of those. We talked about it last week, and it keeps going on this week. So a yad is 2 quincunxes. So in this case, it's that Pluto and Neptune base that you see that we've been talking about, and it's pointing to the crowd over in Mars, and Pallas Athena is conjunct with that. And then Venus will join it, and then Venus will become the point towards the end of the week. So, and then that same aspect of what you've been talking about, Pluto opposite Mercury, that becomes a T-square with the North Node and the Moon, because the North Node and the Moon in this chart are conjunct, and you see how that becomes a T-square. So that squares are a challenge. Squares are, you have to make a decision, you have to take an action, you have to make a decision. So the T-square and the yads are both many, many days, in almost all this week, playing into the energy of the week. So that means, on the one hand, energy is going to flow the way it's going to flow because it's fated into that direction. And I've been thinking about this concept in astrology of fate as well as karma, because we've been talking about my second Saturn return, and Saturn is the planet of karma. So, all of these things are all intended to help us what? Learn how to be better humans, learn how to do this incarnation the best we possibly can, get whatever lesson is that we're supposed to get so that we can fulfill our destiny, right? Everybody has a purpose. Everybody has a reason for being here. And astrology, in my opinion, helps us figure out how to get there and shows us some pretty good, clear indicators about, if you go that way, you're going to have energy. If you go that way, not so much. So
trying to be like somebody else, probably not a great idea.
Not a good idea. Because you have that North Node. The North Node and the Moon talking together is like, how do you feel about it? Does it light you up? Does it make you excited to move forward, or does it make you feel like you just took the wind out of my sails? You just sucked the life out of me. So paying attention to how you feel is really important. And the karma part of it, Saturn doesn't give a shit how you feel. Saturn wants you to do what you're supposed to do. Take responsibility for what it's yours to take responsibility for. And let's face it, we all know inside, yeah, I'm doing it, or, oh, these are the things I'm not getting to. You know, whatever it is, everybody knows if you're honest with yourself. So this is definitely a time to be honest with yourself, paying attention to how you feel. We've been on an unending theme of make sure you take care of yourself, and for good reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, an interesting thing across that they were saying about any birth chart. Rick Levine, I think, said this. Rick Levine is a longtime old man astrologer. He would laugh if I said that. And so
Truly world renowned.
Yeah. And I listen to his lectures at times, and essentially what he says is that if you can find more than one thing in your chart that points to the same meaning. So in other words, you could have North Node in Aries and a Yod pointing into Leo, and both of those signs are about leadership.
And fire action.
And fiery leadership at that. So when that happens, it's even more so. So I would try to find, if I had a Yod and a North Node, I would be looking at the similarities of those 2 points. Because whatever that is going to be super strong in your chart. And when I do natal chart readings, if I see 2 or 3 things that point to the same meaning, then I know that it's true. So I can be like, oh, you have 3 different things that tell me you're psychic, so I know you're psychic. And then they'll be like, well, kind of, I don't know, maybe. Okay, because most psychics dismiss themselves, by the way. Okay, so yeah, so the beginning of the week, I did say that Mars and Pallas Athena over there in Virgo, they're at 0 degrees over there in the 12th house on this particular chart. They're trining the North Node and the Moon, and then they're sextiling the South Node. So that's telling me a lot about your action is going in the right direction. Maybe you've found a good strategy. That's Pallas Athena. Regarding your actions, did you find a good, because Mars in Virgo, I think, is a little bit more practical. So it's a little bit more practical about their movements. Any person I know with Mars in Virgo is a little bit more practical about the actions that they take. I'm not saying they never lose their temper or whatever, but I'm just saying that Mars tends to make things more grounded, and Mars in Virgo tends to make it more grounded. So Mars in Virgo and Pallas Athena, they're both at 0 degrees Virgo. They just came into Virgo, and as they do that, they're going to trine the North Node, Moon, and Chiron. So Chiron is up there too, and so it's technically a trine. And so and as Chiron moves deeper into it, it's just, making us go, maybe I should do it this way because I keep sabotaging myself. And so if you find yourself figuring a better strategy to do that, I think it will be better. So.
Yeah. So what we have at the beginning of the week with all those trines, remember the moon is in Aries, and an Aries moon is nervous temperament.
I was about to say, isn't it kind of nerve-wracking?
Yeah, it's nervous temperament because you have the cool moon with hot Aries. So I always think of cat on a hot tin roof. I can't help it. Because Aries is very energetic and optimistic and go get 'em and idealistic and let's do this.
And the moon is like, wait, let's sense it and see how it goes.
Yeah, well, on the flip side, an Aries moon can also be very impulsive, right? Which the moon is not, generally speaking.
Right.
It can be opinionated, it can be domineering, it can be impatient. The moon is patient. It's the opposite of the moon, right?
Yeah.
So Aries has that go get 'em energy, and the moon is like, chill.
Chill out, man.
So there's, but I will say at the very beginning of the week, you'll notice the degree of the moon is 26 and the degree of the sun is it 16, 15, 18, which means it's a void moon. So it's not a strong moon at that point. It's a waning moon. We're going to have a new moon on July 17th. This forecast covers the 10th to the 16th. So the whole week, the moon is shrinking down. We're coming to the new moon. So there you go. And then, of course, what follows Aries is Taurus. So then the moon is in Taurus. And you still have that yod, but now Venus is more strongly the point at 26 degrees. You still have that T-square because Pluto and Neptune aren't going anywhere. They're just sitting there. And Mercury is not moving very quickly these days. And so this T-square is still happening. And now the moon is going to conjunct. You can see it's just going to go ding, 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 ding. So it's conjuncting Jupiter, and then it's going to conjunct Pallas Athena, and it's sextiling Saturn.
It's also sextiling Juno. So that makes me think about responsibilities and commitments, because Saturn represents responsibilities and Juno is commitments, and the moon is in Taurus. So are we reviewing our commitments and our responsibilities, and like, did I really say that in my commitment? So I could almost see reviewing that and deciding what commitments we want to actually make in and what our responsibility is in that commitment.
Well, the moon in Taurus is exalted. It loves being in Taurus. The moon is Taurus is, of course, very grounded, very trustworthy, very determined, affectionate, artistic. These are all qualities of a Taurus moon. The challenge side is, of course, a bull can be possessive, obstinate, rigid, overly cautious, But basically, that is a happy moon in Taurus. So the exalted moon, I do think you're right about responsibilities. And again, paying attention to how you feel about those responsibilities. Are some of them just suck it up and get it over with? Or some of them, why am I doing this?
Right.
Who does this really serve?
Is this really part of my commitment?
Who does this really serve? Does it serve no one?
And Mercury's going to move into Leo on Tuesdays as well.
Oh.
So when Mercury moves into Leo, Mercury's going to be like, wanting you to speak the truth and be noble, and it could be a little bit on the fiery side, but also at the same time it'll be kind of like about doing the right thing. So you're not just gonna go off at the mouth. If whatever you do say is probably going to be fairly noble, or come from some sort of space of truth. And those trines, with Pallas Athena in Virgo and Mars in Virgo, and the North nodes and the South node, all of that's going to become really strong. And then, of course, Neptune is sextiling Pluto. So that's actually a great conversation, because I'm going to just say, if you're a medium, you need to be paying attention to your readings. This week could be really good. You might be able to really, spirits might be able to really come through and help you see the dream, help you see the vision, help you see forward. And it's also, so you may, if you're talking to your spirit guides or trying to connect with your spirit guides and things like that, pay attention to that, because that's going to really like get exemplified this week, because of Neptune's trine also with Mercury, because it's just saying if there's communication. It's almost like the lines of communication to the other side are going to be opened.
Right, because you've got Pallas Athena conjunct Venus, and they're going to be having a conversation about what's the strategy. What's the strategy? How are we going to do this? You've got a, Mercury joining the party, and yeah, I think communication is definitely seems like it keeps popping up in a variety of ways in this week's chart.
But be aware, be open to psychic communication, where you're communicating with either your spirit guides or spirits on the other side, or if you're a medium, or if you do tarot or anything like that. This is a good week to engage in that kind of stuff, because the messages will come through more clearly for you. They'll come right through. So this is the week you want to engage in those kinds of things. So meditation, anything that you do, your pendulum, anything you do to connect to the other side, okay? You want to reach out to your ancestors now this week, because this will continue on. These trines and sextiles, they'll continue on. And even on Wednesday, Juno is also sextiling Jupiter, I noticed. So that's about big commitments. So if you're starting to have some big commitments, just know that they're going to come easy. Consider them. Make sure you explore the whole thing, because that's what a sextile is. It's when you kind of look at both sides of the story and decide what works. So that's the great part of a sextile. And with Sun squaring Chiron, I just want you to pay attention to that. It won't last very long, but it will be for a little while. And while they're squaring, I would pay attention to what keeps you from moving forward. This is going to be about wounds, personal wounds that like you do to sabotage yourself that keeps you from moving forward. So pay attention to any downloads you get about that. And with the communication being so open to the other side this week, then it's a good time for you to check in with your spirit guides and be like, hey, what am I doing that keeps me from proceeding? Is there something? Am I sabotaging myself? Can you show me where? And your spirit guides will be better at communicating that this week with you.
Yeah. And on the 12th, we have another. So we still have the finger of God that we've talked about, the yod that we've talked about with Venus. But now we have another one, and this time the base is Ceres, which represents motherhood, nurturing, what you birth into the world. It doesn't have to be a child. And of course, it's in Libra, which is a very nurturing sign. The other part of the base of the quintile is Mercury and Leo, and they're pointing at Saturn and Pisces. So again, we're pointing at karma. We're pointing at fated energy. The conversation of nurturing and Mercury, Ceres and Mercury, that conversation is like, how are we taking care of things? How are we taking care of ourselves? How are we taking care of our projects, our what we bring into this world?
That's probably why we're seeing certain people. I'll just say that there's probably not any Trumpers listening. Like people like Trump, falling. That's why we're seeing that. Because karma is being delivered, right? Okay. So, sometimes when we feel like, why do the bad guys get away with everything, and they never get their karma delivered? That's not true. They do get their karma delivered. It's just that they hide it and pretend that nothing's wrong. Where the rest of the world's like, oh, this sucks. Trump will never say that. And if he does, he'll try to make it into some ego thing anyway, right? So just watch as karma is delivered. You'll notice that narcissists are falling off their stage. If you watch close enough, you will see narcissists getting kicked out.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
And the moon on Wednesday is squaring Lilith, who's a badass, squaring Venus, and you got Venus and Lilith having a conversation. It's like, ooh, don't piss off the women in your world. Whatever that means. I'm just saying, I don't know where that came from. I'm just offering up a sweet little piece of advice because it's also squaring Mars. So really, I would be mindful. It's trining Pluto, but square Mars, square Venus, square Lilith. Don't piss her off. Whoever she might be.
Yeah, or they, because
Or they.
Mercury, right?
Yeah,
She has
well,
to
and it's
square
a
Mer-
void moon at this point, so
Okay.
it's not as strong.
So it's more in the background when
Yeah.
it's void, right?
But if you have placements in those signs, you're gonna feel it. Period. Full stop. End of story.
Okay. And I was looking at what other things come into play on the 13th. Saturn in conjunct Ceres, that just comes into play quickly
What does
there.
that mean, in conjunct?
In conjunct is actually what did you call it? It's part of the yod. It's also called a quincunx.
Okay.
It's just easier for me to remember in conjunct because quincunx means nothing to me.
Okay, so now I recognize one word and you recognize
Right.
the other. So as
And
long
so-
as we
In conjunct, it's actually the same thing.
okay.
And so in conjunct is like it's
Yeah.
not it's adverse, but it's not a complete opposition. Okay.
Okay, so that's
So-
exactly what I was talking about. The yod with Sirius and Mercury pointing at Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
Saturn is in conjunct Sirius. Yeah.
So and
Mhm.
Saturn is also quintile the sun. So quintile is a karmic thing. And so I was
Is this the one that Rick was saying there's like nothing you can do about it?
There's nothing you can do about it. It's going to happen. So this will be July the 13th, and Saturn and the Sun are pretty big planets as far as astrology goes. And Saturn's very much about responsibility and karma. So by Thursday, we're probably might be seeing some further karma get delivered, maybe to those in deserving it. Especially when it comes to the system, especially when it comes to things that are hidden, because Cancer tends to rule things that are hidden, because Cancer hides things pretty well because they have a hard shell, right? Because Cancer is represented by the crab, right? Okay. So just what's going on here is in Saturn in conjunct the Ceres, this could be about things that show up in our world, but it could also be about our personal lives as too, because Saturn's about responsibility, and in conjunct Ceres tells me that taking care of yourself and taking care of your responsibilities are going to be they're not going to cooperate well on this day. So try to take care of yourself this week, and if on Thursday you got to skip your morning practice or something, just give yourself a break right away. Okay.
Sounds like a good idea. Give yourself a break right away.
Yeah. Don't call yourself lazy or whatever else other hard time. And it'll probably be going on for the rest of the week, like the 13th, I think, through the 16th.
It's sort of a repeat. 14th, 15th, 16th are all like
It'll be going on for a while.
See above.
It'll be going on for a little while.
Yeah.
And because there's also a yod pointing from Mercury and Lilith to Saturn, with Ceres also to Saturn, and they're both pointing at Saturn. And so that's a lot to do with responsibilities, pulling from our independence and communication and our taking care of ourselves. And maybe somehow our responsibilities get dropped, or we have to drop our self-care because we have to do such and such responsibility.
Well, interesting, because that Thursday, Friday is when the moon is in Gemini. And Gemini, sometimes responsibilities. A Gemini moon can be very charming and diplomatic and witty and a good networker and a good partier. Let's be honest. They're very lively and amusing. A challenge on the Gemini moon is that they can be disorganized, inconsistent, maybe lacking in responsibility. Sometimes they can be manipulative. Gemini's air, and it's the twins. And so So the moon in Gemini is a very active mind, is what I would say, because of all the air. And so given what you're saying about responsibility, and the moon is in Gemini, I go, check your responsibilities. Some of them you might want to just blow off, and you just need to be mindful about what's okay to blow off and what might not be okay to blow
You might have to make a list of your priorities.
There you go. That's a good way to put it.
So like sit down and make a real list and be like real about it. Like really, how important is this?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the important part about this. And with Mercury sextiling Vespa and Ceres, it's it's about communication of I know I said I would do this, but I can't do that today because I haven't done anything for myself today, and I have to take a shower and do some meditation before I continue, and then I'll get to what I promised I would do with you, or I'll have to do it tomorrow. Like those kinds of things, just communicating it. Don't just drop the ball, like try to communicate it. And that's sort of what Mercury is asking you to do.
And that Mercury would be communicate the why you can or why you cannot, so that you have less reaction on the other end. And people tend to be more reasonable when they understand why, the why behind why you did something. So, if it's, I can't do it. I'm out of time and I'm spent and I won't give it the quality it deserves. If I do it now, explain. And that's what Mercury's in the mix to help you do. And it shouldn't be too hard. You should be able to do it with Mercury helping you.
And look at that. There's another, remember what I was saying at the beginning today, Lacrosse, where I was saying that if you have more than one thing pointing to the same meaning, here we got Neptune in conjunct Venus, and Venus is very much about self-love, right? Especially in Leo. She's about self-love. How do we feel about ourselves? Do we love ourselves? What are we doing for self-care? It's in conjunct our vision. So they're at adverse. They're not functioning together. And so one way means taking care of yourself, and the other way is the way you want to go, which is Neptune is kind of trying to lead the way, right? Okay. Or Neptune is saying, but you have to do this to get this done, right? And you're going to be aware that those things have to be done, but you're also aware that you got to take care of yourself. So there's like the same thing in two different placements, in two different aspects. Yeah. It's kind of the same message, but two different aspects, saying the same thing. And that's on Friday. So I'm going to assume that this tendency continues over the weekend.
Yeah. And on the weekend, the moon comes home. It's in its home sign of Cancer. And of course, it's very happy when it's in Cancer, because you know how you feel when you come home. You can catch your breath, you can relax, you can take a bubble bath, you can eat your favorite foods, you can wear whatever you want and you're comfortable in. So moon in Cancer is like,
And if you're finding that you need to transform those visions, go ahead and do it. Pluto sextiling Neptune. So it's inviting you to revisit, is that really the way I wanted to go? This vision that I have, is this really what I wanted, and how can I change it?
Yeah, because you have another yod, that is, the base of it is Venus and the moon, and it's pointing at Pluto, which is, what do I need to do to transform for my highest vision?
So there's several aspects pointing to sort of the same thing.
The same thing, over and over.
Yeah, and when that happens, we know that that's going to be really strong in the sky.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a really strong part of the experience that week.
Right. And then on the 16th, it's what we call a dark moon, because we're going to have a new moon on the 17th in Cancer, when the moon and the sun both get to 25 degrees Cancer. That'll be a new moon in Cancer. So happy birthday to the Cancers, and whoever, we all get a moon a month, a moon a year. So the Cancer moons will have their new moon. And on Sunday, again, you have that moon conjunct Juno. So what are you loyal to? It's sextiling Jupiter. It's squaring Chiron. Take care of yourself. It's trining Saturn again. It's trining Saturn Saturday and Sunday. And we're still pointing towards that yod, towards Venus. What do you value? What makes you feel good? What do you love? What loves you back?
I was looking at Ceres quintile Uranus. I was like, wow, if that's a destined thing that's going to happen, I'm almost like, I don't even know. Like Uranus is kind of like a lightning strike. It tends to be a little weird. It tends to be queer. And Ceres is very much about taking care of ourselves, nurturing. And it's actually in Libra, which is about relationships, and Uranus is in Taurus. And so I'm almost wondering if on this day, you could have a conversation with someone because of the series and maybe that conversation could be difficult about anything. It could be maybe you're queer and you're trying to, keep from having too much of a confrontation with your, conservative uncle or something. Like that kind of thing is what I'm thinking about. So if that happens, just be aware that if an uncomfortable conversation happens, it's meant to happen. Sometimes I think I've had them, they kind of just come flying out of my mouth like I don't know, like a bolt of lightning. And I'm like, oh, did I say that? Right? I think we've all had that, right? We've all had that conversation where we're like, oh, shit, I just said that.
I should have thought twice on that one.
Yeah, and then sometimes you're like, now we got to get into it. And I have to defend my perspective of what I just said. And I knew saying this to them is probably not going to go over well. And so if something like that happens, it's okay. It could affect the relationship, yes. But sometimes I think that's necessary. I've said some things where to people, and then later on, they recognize what I said was actually right, or, you made your point, Hollis. They may not 100% agree, or it still challenges their conservative perspective, but I think over time we influence people, especially more conservative people. I think over time we influence them. Especially, and so that's why I don't always say, if they're driving you crazy, don't let them in your life. But if you can tolerate them up to a point, like almost all of us have people like that in our life, like they're conservative people or whatever. Usually it's conservatives for me. But it could be other types of people in your life. You can tolerate them, and then at some point they kind of get on your nerves. And so I think that you should just take them up to the point of tolerance, and then you have something come up.
As a total funny and aside, we were doing a Friday night. We did a Longmont Pride in the park up in Colorado, and it was beautiful. And I don't know what possessed me, but at a certain point, I was sitting in the booth, and I saw these two women looking at one of my paintings, and they were really looking at it, but they weren't saying anything. So some smart ass blurt out comes out of me that says, well, you could say you like it, and then I would say thank you. And then they're like, yeah, I really like it. How much do you want for it? And I sold it to them. They bought it. They were just about on the verge of moving on to the next booth when some craziness in me blurted out. And Hollis was like, that was your Leo moon. I was like, I don't even know where that came from. I don't know what possessed me, but it got the conversation rolling. And the next thing you know, they're buying the painting. And I was like, wow.
I know. I was like, that worked?
It was just,
Like-
I couldn't believe how bold I was.
The
I would never be able to
salesperson-
pull that off. They'd look at me like, really?
I-
Like,
And I was all smiles and joking, and
Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
that's how I was able to pull it off.
Yeah.
I still look at myself and go, God, I don't know what the hell was I thinking? Yeah, I wasn't thinking. That was it, you know.
but it worked. It worked. If it worked, that's even awesome. That's awesome.
Sale closed, you know.
It was a painting like this one.
Yeah, it was
Ah.
another version of this, but a little smaller.
Yeah.
This
so-
one's not for sale anymore.
Yeah.
This one you can use to commission me to make one for you, which has been done.
so
So it's
across-
hilarious.
Oh.
You never know. Sometimes it's your truth getting blurted out, and it can be a wonderful thing. It doesn't
Mhm.
always have to be an embarrassing apologize. Oh my God, I can't believe I said that. I still was doing, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, they still paid on PayPal, and I was like, oh my God. Okay, just don't say anything, whatever. Because what am I going to say? You know, it's her paying her. You know, we share a booth together, but I can't be responsible for everything that comes out of Bright Hawk's mouth. Just like I wouldn't expect her to be responsible for anything that comes out of
reach
my
her
mouth.
out person, you know? Oh my
You know?
gosh.
And so anyway, Lacrosse, do you have some things, anything about the moon or anything about our indigenous
Woodpecker
wisdom?
buddy.
Yeah, our woodpecker buddy. I actually found out an interesting fact about the woodpecker. It's both genders take care of the eggs. Both genders take responsibility, and both sit on the eggs, and both protect the eggs. And I think it kind of reminded me of like earlier when we were speaking about commitments. And to be committed is to engage in that partnership. I'm not saying male, female, 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 male. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying any type of partnership. And when you were talking about finding people who are compatible, you know, I'm thinking about these eggs that here's this partnership, and with that partnership, something is going to be birthed out that's good. You know, and I just thought that was really interesting that it wasn't, oh, it's your job, or it's the man's job, or it's the woman's job, or it's you sit on here for a little bit, and then when you're done, I'm going to sit on here for a little bit. And it's this constant partnership that I thought was so cool to see, that there was no, there really wasn't any, it's your job or whatever. And I thought that was pretty interesting. That kind of stood out to me, because we're in a society where it's like, that's not my job.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know,
I
you should do
love
the cooking and the cleaning. And I'm like, no, that doesn't work that way.
Yeah, life doesn't work that way. You know what? We have here for the second year in a row a pair of blue jays who act exactly the same way the woodpeckers do.
Yeah.
And so last year there was two fledglings, two little babies, and I helped rescue them because they fell out of their nest too early, and one was hanging by a leg, and I felt really bad for them, so I helped them out. And then this year there were three little babies, and absolutely the same behavior. You're 100% correct. They took turns. One would fly and hang out, one go get a worm, sit on the nest, you know, whatever.
But I thought it was strange that there was two different males. There were definitely two males. And then there was, you said that you seen a female. And I'm like, but those are two males, because they have big, huge mohawks.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're bright, beautiful blue. They're like vibrant
there
blue.
was a female. She's a little more gray.
Right. She's more gray, and she doesn't have that big mohawk on her head, right?
Not so much.
Right, yeah. And so I've watched two males because they're both on the roof at the same time. One came in and fed and left, and then the other one came in and fed and left. And I was like, there's two males and a female. Okay.
Hey,
Maybe they're sharing it. Maybe
that's
they're
work for her.
okay.
And there were three babies, not one, not
Wow.
two, three.
Wow.
And we watched them fledge, all of them. We were gardening one day when the first one popped out and was like,
Yeah, they were kind of cute.
And then the next day, the two of them, like one of them took turns sitting on his sibling, you know, he's like doing his thing. And then finally, by the end of the day, both of them had left the nest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I find it's really powerful when I'm just saying that when we think that our male female taking care of the baby, like gender role thing, is natural, when you watch Mother Nature, that's actually not true. um there's so many instances in which
Yep.
there are two female or all females or all males taking care of the babies, especially like with seahorses, for instance. um, and because the female, once that egg is fertilized, she gives it off to the male. And the same thing goes for penguins in a very similar
Yeah.
fashion in their little pouch. And so I just find it fascinating, and for woodpeckers to also be like that. I think um I think the age old saying of it takes a tribe to raise a baby,
Yeah.
whether that baby you know, is a bird or a human. I think it takes a while. All right, my friends, I'm going to do a little tarot pool for you.
Yeah, what do the cards have to say to us this week?
So this is the Pride deck. This is the Pride deck. You can look at it online on Amazon and stuff. Love is Love deck, and each one of these cards is done by by an LGBTQ artist. Yep. Okay. So this is the past, which is what we were just talking about, which is the seahorse. This is I call this card my trans masculine card. Why? Because the character riding the seahorse is very trans masculine. You can tell because they have the symbology on their shield here. They have like a male, and then they have both, right? And then there's actually a female symbol down here. And then plus there's a transgender flag around the seahorse. And well, seahorses are the ultimate trans masculine, in my opinion. They sort of nurse their babies and they sort of are a little bit more nurturing, rather than action oriented, actually. And so which just shows that what we classify as masculine and feminine isn't always what we think it is. But so this could be about trans masculine people in your life, or just the pushing of those gender roles and the pushing of what is always true, because that's sort of what trans masculine people do. Is even though they are not necessarily usually targeted the way trans feminine women are, they are often ignored, but they do challenge the way we do things. And people, trans masculine people like myself in lacrosse, we tend to step out of the box. We tend to change the way you believe in things. And that's exactly what this is. This is also the Knight of Pentacles, because we're also usually pretty good about using our resources and usually having resources from nowhere deep within that people are like, oh shit, man, you're stronger than I thought you were, right? Okay. That kind of feeling, that kind of energy. And also sometimes trans masculine people tend to be steady as you go. And they just keep going, even though when people expect them to quit or let go. And I think that's where trans masculine people sort of push the envelope, and push our expectations of things. And that's exactly what this is about, especially when it comes to like seahorses and trans masculine people in your life or yourself, where you push on those resources, where your resources come out of nowhere, where you seem to have never ending energy or strength, or or whatever it is that you seem to have a never ending flow of. Because you have to think about where seahorses live. They live deep within the ocean, deep, deep, deep. And that's the other thing I notice about my trans masculine friends is most of us are pretty deep individuals. We have a deep heart, and we just we usually process on a deeper level. And I think that's also why drag kings look so much different than a drag queen, I think that's why. So trans masculine drag kings tend to have a lot of meaning beyond just, it's cool to look like Madonna. They tend to bring like some spiritual meaning or something like that more in depth to their stage, even in drag. So I think it just has something to do with being coming from that place. Doesn't mean that trans feminine people are shallow. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it might take a little bit longer to get to their depth. That's all. And the Queen of Swords this is actually a trans feminine card, and this is the here and now. And so this one always reminds me of trans women in my life, which usually have a lot of power, a lot of strength, and sometimes they have to come at the world in a very black and white, because they're faced with so much adversity the way they are targeted. And so remember that part. Remember what is targeted, and remember how our culture can make things very black and white. And just remember, this is also about the messages of transformation and how you can change the way people see you. Think about the way trans feminine people do that all the time. Trans women are powerful beings, and they have to work really hard to get people to change the way they see them. But if you've ever had the experience of witnessing a transformation of a person, even if they thought they might just be a gay guy or something before, and then later they go, oh no, I'm a trans woman, and even shifting your own perspective of that with somebody in your life, that's a really powerful experience. And learning how to shift that transformation, that's what this card is about. This is about, how do I shift my perspective? How do I change the way I see things? And things aren't so black and white, and they're not always as they seem, right? Neptune's in retrograde. Things are not always what they seem. And what we thought was true now, what we thought was true yesterday may not be true today. And so questioning things and allowing our perspective to transform, that's what this card is all about. And that's the Queen of Swords. See how trans women have their power too. It's just in a slightly different way. And then going forward, this is the Queen of Pentacles. And she's very powerful in herself. She has her resources, and she pulls her resources down from nature, from the moon, from the sun, and even from gardening and being outdoors, taking a walk in the woods or whatever. But she's also a very powerful being in her connection with everything. And that's what this is about. This is about using your resources to the best of your ability in order to bring your best self forward. This is an amazing, strong, powerful woman that is using her strength to help you see her resilience, and to see her strength, and to see her beauty. And so that's what this is all about. Shine your light, shine your bright light, shine it by using your resources, pulling from what you do have, right? So in review, check it out, right? What resources have you had? What resources have you pulled from? Where do you pull from a deep meaning? Where do you where's your deep meaning, and what do you show as your strength and your sort of never-ending power, right? And as you're going forward, don't be afraid to allow your perspective or your view or whatever you're up to transform. Don't be afraid to let things change. Allow things to shift. It's okay to change your perspective, and it's okay to allow people to change their perspective of you. And so maybe they had one idea of yourself and you've been presenting like that for a long time. It's okay to change it now. It's okay to present in a different way. What's important is not so much that you change, but that if you do change, that you change into your brightest light, into your strongest power, into what's most authentically you, when you are connected to the sun, to the moon, and to nature. And that's pretty much what this is all about this week. So walk in authentically yourself, and don't be afraid to bring that forward.
Good stuff.
Very good reading.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I needed that. I needed to hear that.
Isn't it funny how the way we present to the world changes over time?
Yeah.
It's, it definitely changes. I mean, I know that the way I've presented to the world has definitely changed over time.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
And that happens for everybody.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
remember coming into this, I was so hard and it took to, like I've said it 100 times, I had to become a trans man to be able to embrace the femininity. Because before transition, I was actually probably very toxic masculinity. And then
Mhm.
when I transitioned, it went full circle. And I was like, wow, I don't think I would have been able to embrace it before, but now I can embrace that and realize how beautiful it is, you know.
Right. And I think that all of us have a little bit of both in all of us. And I think for me, like recognizing that and then coming to accept that I'm a man in a woman's body and that's who I am. And I was made that way on purpose. That's the way it's supposed to be. And that people are supposed to assume that I'm a woman, but then when they get to know me, they go, "Oh, you are more masculine than I thought." And you also have feminine, qualities as well. You have both. And that's fine. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. And I think being more authentic has helped me feel more comfortable in myself. So I stopped doing that what's wrong with me thing, which seems to be like the transgender experience. What's wrong with me? Yeah. So,
Well, I always throw in their face when they come up to me and God doesn't make mistakes. I said, you're absolutely right. This was not a mistake. I am created exactly how I'm supposed to be. And I also tell them, good thing I'm an atheist.
Nice. Good job.
well, and I think a lot of people transition not because they think God made a mistake, but I mean some people might think that, but I think that they transition so that culture will accept them the way they see themselves, right?
Right.
I mean,
Well, it's usually when I hear that, it's from Christians who say that, like God didn't make any mistakes. You're this way, and you should have just stayed that way. I'm like, well, from the case of your eyebrows, you're a brunette. Why do you have blonde hair? I'm
right.
just saying, it is
Great.
Oh, that's good.
God made you to get wrinkly and old. What's with the plastic surgery? Just
Right.
saying.
Right. And you're still putting tightening cream on your face last I checked.
Exactly. So I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it. I said, what do you see when you look in the mirror? Is that why you change your hair color or change your eye color or change your teeth or change your body? Because you want the mirror to reflect who you see. It's no different for somebody who's transgender. We want the mirror to reflect what we see inside.
That's right.
You keep coloring your hair and I'll keep doing me.
Right.
Good job.
I don't see why it's anyone else's business anyway, but
Right. I think it's a good answer though. I like that one.
I like that's a good answer. Yeah, that's great. That's great for us to share with the community. All right, my friends. Well, thank you. Please subscribe or like or comment. Please share. You can always check us out. Like if you want to share it and you don't want to share your podcast software, whatever that might be, check out YouTube. Okay. We are on YouTube and to be honest, we have a lot of followers on YouTube right now.
Thank you for all of the folks that listen and follow us. We really appreciate it. We hope you guys have a great week.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing and thanks for commenting, friends. We'd love to hear from you. Have a good week.
Let us know how it goes. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this week's Soulstrology and subscribing, liking, sharing, and reviewing. We hope you enjoy this dose of Soulstrology and encourage you to embrace the week ahead with an open mind and heart so that you may integrate the deepest of lessons from the stars. Take a moment to step outside and honor the planets, stars, and moon in the sky with your heart. Integrate the messages that resonate and leave the rest for someone else. We deeply appreciate each and every one of you. Always remember that you are a perfectly unique human with an exclusive star map of your destiny, your soul purpose, and your heart's desire. Thank you again for tuning in to Rainbow Soul.